They say every house has a history, but some histories refuse to stay buried. When I first saw the house, it looked like it hadn't been touched in years. The gate hung crooked, rusted vines wrapped around the fences, and the windows were layered with years of dirt and forgotten time. Yet something about it called to me. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the price. Or maybe it was the way I had nowhere else to go. I wasn't always like this. I had dreams once, a family, a future, but life doesn't always follow the plans we make. After my mother died, I had no one. My father disappeared when I was just a baby, and the few relatives we had never liked my mother in the first place. They said she was cursed, that she talked to things that weren't there. They called her crazy. I never believed them. Until now. I used what little money I had left to buy the house. It was far from the city, tucked away in the shadow of a dying forest. The air smelled different here, thick with damp wood, old memories, and something else I couldn't name. The old man who sold it to me barely looked me in the eye. All he said was, "Don't stay out after dark, and don't listen too closely." I laughed it off at the time. Now I wish I hadn't. At first, things seemed fine. The place was dusty and cold, but it had strong walls and a working fireplace. I cleaned one room, just enough to sleep in, and told myself I'd fix it up little by little. I tried to see it as a fresh start, a quiet life away from all the noise and pain I'd left behind. But the quiet here is not the same. It started with the floors. Every night, just past midnight, I'd hear the sound of footsteps, slow, dragging, heavy, moving down the hallway. At first I thought it was the wood settling or maybe rats. But the steps were too steady, too deliberate, and they always stopped right outside my door. Never knocked, never continued, just silence, and then a faint breathing. I told my best friend Jess about it. She's the only one who stayed by my side after everything. We grew up together, went to the same school, and shared all our childhood secrets. She has this way of making everything feel lighter, even the darkest parts of my life. Jessa said I was just stressed. "You've been through a lot," she told me. "Maybe your mind is just playing tricks." Maybe it was, but things kept happening. The mirrors fog up even when there's no heat. I'd find muddy footprints in the hallway, leading from the back door to the old staircase. Footprints too large for me and too fresh to be mine. I started hearing whispers in the walls, soft and low, like someone humming a tune just out of reach. Once I turned on the radio to drown out the noise, and it burst into static. Then a voice whispered my name, slow and cold, before it cut off completely. I haven't used the radio since. Still, I stayed. Part of me felt like I needed to be here, like something was waiting for me. Then, I found the journal. It was hidden behind a loose brick in the fireplace, wrapped in faded cloth and tied with string. The pages were brittle, the handwriting rushed and panicked. It belonged to a girl named Liza, who lived in the house decades ago. Her entry started out normal. School life, chores, family, but soon they changed. She wrote about shadows that moved on their own, about dreams that bled into her waking life, and a name she never dared to say aloud. The last page ended mid-sentence. The ink was smudged, as if her hand had been shaking. It simply read, "I think it knows I can see it. I shouldn't have looked into the mirror. It's not my reflection anymore." After that, I couldn't sleep. Every mirror in the house I covered with cloth. I couldn't bear to look at my own reflection, not after reading what she wrote. Not after I started noticing my own face flickering, just for a second, but enough to know something wasn't right. Jessa came over to help. She stayed the night once, to prove that it was all in my head. We laughed about it, made hot chocolate, and told ghost stories like we used to when we were kids. That night, the house was quiet, almost too quiet, like it was waiting. The next morning, Jessa looked different, pale, shaken. She wouldn't tell me what she saw, only that she couldn't come back. She begged me to leave the house, said something was wrong with the land itself. that the silence here was alive. But I didn't listen. I had nowhere else to go. Last night, everything changed. I woke up at 3:12 a.m., heart pounding. The air felt colder than usual, and my breath came out in white mist. The door to my room was open. I never leave it open. As I got up to close it, I heard it again. The footsteps, but this time they were faster, closer, and coming up the stairs. I froze. Then I saw it, at the end of the hallway, just past the edge of the candlelight. A figure, tall, still. Its face was shadowed, but its hands were long, reaching almost to the floor. It didn't move, but I felt it staring. I ran back into my room and slammed the door. But the footsteps never reached it. No knock, no breathing, just silence. This morning, I found something outside my door. A cracked piece of mirror, and etched into it, with something sharp, was one word: look. Now, I don't know what to believe. I came here for peace, for healing, but the house has other plans. And I think whatever lies here has finally decided it's time for me to see it. After I found the cracked piece of mirror outside my door, I couldn't sleep again. For the next 2 nights, I kept the lights on, barely blinking. Every creak in the floor, every shift of the wind outside made my skin crawl. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was watching me. Not just from the dark corners of the house, but from inside me, too. Like the house wasn't just alive, it was sinking its roots into my thoughts. I tried calling Jessa again, but she wouldn't answer. Not even a text. Maybe she was too scared. Or maybe the house wanted me alone. The next morning, I decided to go through the attic. I had avoided it before, but something inside me, curiosity or desperation, pushed me to open the creaky wooden hatch. Dust poured down like ash, and the wooden ladder groaned under my weight. The attic smelled of mothballs, rotting paper, and something older, metallic like dried blood. Boxes were stacked along the walls, untouched for decades. I pulled one open, and inside were old photographs, sepia-toned and cracked. Men and women with familiar eyes. One woman looked just like my mother, only younger. On the back of the photo was a note in faded ink. To Isadora, the gift must stay hidden. Never awaken what sleeps. Isadora, that was my mother's real name. She never used it. Always insisted on being called Sarah. Suddenly, a sharp wind rushed through the attic, even though no windows were open. The photos scattered like dead leaves, and a heavy object slid across the floor toward me. A wooden box with strange carvings etched along the edges. I hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a small glowing shell, a mutia. It pulsed softly as if breathing, warm when I touched it. As I held it, the air shifted. The silence stopped feeling oppressive, and for a moment, I felt something else, like the house was watching, but unsure. Hesitant, I wrapped the mutia in cloth and kept it with me. That night, I had a dream, or maybe it was a vision. In the dream, I was a child again, walking through a dense forest under a red moon. I heard my mother's voice, calling me from somewhere deep in the trees. But when I followed the sound, I didn't find her. Instead, I saw a shadow, a creature hunched low, eyes glowing yellow, its teeth dripping with black saliva. It whispered in a voice that sounded like wind in the trees. You are marked. The blood remembers. And they are coming. I woke up gasping, the mutia clutched in my hand, glowing even brighter. That day, I visited the oldest man in the nearby barangay. Everyone called him Mang Inouye, a healer who lived near the riverbank. The locals believed he was over 100 years old. I had heard the rumors that he could see things others couldn't, that he had once fought beings from the other world. I didn't believe any of it until now. When I entered his hut, he stared at me long and hard, not with fear, but with recognition. You should not be here, he said, voice dry like leaves. The curse in your blood was buried long ago. I asked him what he meant, and slowly he told me the truth. Decades ago, my mother's family had been guardians of a hidden Mutya, a sacred object said to contain the last light of an ancient Dewata who once protected our region. But something happened. One of my ancestors, desperate for power, made a pact with a group of Aswangs, creatures who feed on flesh and fear, shapeshifters who wear human skin. The deal broke the balance. The Dewata's light was nearly extinguished, and the family was cursed. One child in every generation would be marked, haunted, chosen to either awaken the darkness or destroy it. My mother ran from that fate. She tried to live a normal life, to hide me from what I was. But the curse doesn't forget. And now it was my turn. You've already awakened the house, Mang Inouye said. The Aswangs know. They will come for you. But there is still time to prepare. He handed me a bundle wrapped in banana leaves. Inside was a dried plant, a talisman made of anting, and a scroll with strange markings. You must train your senses, he said. The Mutya will show you, but only if your heart is strong. If your fear is greater than your will, it will consume you. I returned home with a bundle. I felt different, afraid, but also stronger, like I wasn't just a victim anymore. That night, I began practicing the rituals Mang Inouye had shown me. Breathing exercises, burning herbs, chanting old prayers. I still didn't understand it all, but every time I held the Mutya, I saw flashes of faces of places that no longer exist, of a war between light and dark that happened long before I was born. The house responded, too. I noticed the mirrors stopped fogging up. The footsteps no longer came every night. But instead, the dreams got stronger, more vivid, more painful. In one dream, I saw my mother, her face pale and crying, holding the same Mutya. Behind her were burning trees and howling creatures. She whispered something I couldn't hear, then turned to ash. I woke up to a loud crash downstairs. When I rushed to check, the front door was wide open. On the doorstep was a dead bird with no eyes. Its wings were twisted unnaturally, and beside it lay a small strand of hair, my hair tied in red thread. It was a warning. The next day, I went back to Mang Inouye, but his hut was empty, burned, still smoking. No sign of him anywhere. I was alone again. Only this time, I knew what I was facing. That night, the whispers in the walls returned, but now I could understand them. They spoke in an old tongue, one I shouldn't have known, but somehow did. They said, the blood moon rises. The marked must choose, serve or suffer. I don't know how much time I have left. The Mutya is changing. It glows stronger when I'm afraid, and sometimes it hums like it's warning me. I've started training my body, learning to move silently, to listen closely. I made protective circles around my bed, and I wear the anting Mang Inouye gave me wherever I go. But I can feel the walls closing in. Every shadow seems longer now. Every stranger I meet, every eye that lingers too long, feels like it's studying me, waiting for something. The house has grown quieter again, but it's not a peaceful quiet. It's waiting, and somewhere out there, the Aswangs are watching. The silence in the house was not the same anymore. It was deeper. It felt like something was holding its breath, waiting for me to make the next move. Since Mang Inouye disappeared, I had no one to guide me, no one to answer the questions burning inside my head. What was the Mutya truly meant for? Why me? Why now? I sat alone in the corner of the living room that night, the Mutya resting in my palm, glowing faintly. I felt its warmth, but it no longer gave me comfort. Instead, it reminded me of what I'd lost, my mother, my childhood, any normal life I once dreamed of. I remembered something Jessa once told me when we were still in school. You're stronger than you think. Even if your family's messed up, you don't have to be like them. Back then, I didn't know what she meant. But now I understood. After my dream about my mother turning to ash, I started looking deeper into her past. I searched through old boxes in the attic again, checked the dusty cabinets, flipped through torn letters and faded photos. That's when I found a journal hidden behind a loose panel in the bedroom wall. It wasn't hers. It belonged to my uncle, a man I never knew existed. His name was Elias. According to his words, he once trained to become the next guardian of the Mutia. He knew about the Aswangs, the rituals, the curse, but he refused to take on the responsibility. He fled the town, left my mother behind, and she was forced to take his place. One line in the journal tore me apart. Sarah begged me not to leave, but I couldn't live my life chained to a curse. I hope she forgives me. Forgiveness. That was a word I didn't know how to feel. I thought about my mother, how tired her eyes always looked, how she never let me play outside after dark, how she flinched at the sound of owls. Now I realized it wasn't just fear, it was guilt. She had carried the burden alone because no one else would, and now it was mine. A part of me hated her for keeping it all a secret, for pretending we were normal when we were never meant to be. But another part of me felt sorry. She was just trying to protect me, the only way she knew how. But secrets always find a way out. That night, I left the house for the first time in days. I needed air. I needed space. I walked down the old path toward the forest behind the property, the same forest from my dream. The trees whispered as I passed, their branches swaying without wind. I could hear faint voices again, chanting, humming, maybe weeping. I held the Mutia tight, and it pulsed as if warning me. Then I saw him, a man standing in the clearing, his back turned to me. He wore a wide-brimmed hat, and his clothes looked too clean, too new. I called out, "Kuya," but he didn't move. As I stepped closer, I felt the air drop, cold, sharp, unnatural. He turned, but it wasn't a man. Its eyes were empty sockets, and its mouth stretched too wide, revealing sharp, black teeth. Its skin was smooth like wax. It smiled at me, and my blood turned to ice. The Mutia burned in my hand. I held it up, and for a moment the creature hissed, its skin bubbling, steaming. Then it vanished, just like that, gone with the wind. I ran back home, breath shaking, legs trembling. My hands wouldn't stop shaking for hours. That was my first real encounter with them, the enemy. I had read about Aswangs in Meng Inouye scrolls, how they could mimic human form, how they could slip into dreams, feed on fear, wait for weakness. That thing in the forest wasn't trying to kill me. Not yet. It was testing me, measuring me. I was being hunted. But worse than that, I was being watched. The next morning, I found claw marks on my bedroom window. Not deep, but enough to scratch through the glass. 3 thin lines. A message. "We see you." I felt like a prisoner in my own skin. The Mutia was my only shield, but it wasn't enough. Not yet. I needed to understand it. I needed to be ready. That day, I forced myself to train again. I repeated the rituals, drank the bitter herbal tea Meng Inouye gave me before he vanished. I followed the breathing patterns, chanted the strange phrases, and slowly, things began to change. I started to hear more clearly. The whispers now carried words, warnings, sometimes names. My hands moved faster. My instincts grew sharper. But with every new strength came a price. The dreams became darker, more painful. I dreamed of my Uncle Elias being dragged through mud by shadowy beasts, his face twisted in regret. I saw my mother standing over a burning crib, her hands covered in blood. I couldn't tell what was real anymore. Were these memories or tricks from the enemy? One morning, I woke up with dirt under my fingernails. My feet were muddy. Had I been sleepwalking, or was something guiding me while I slept? I wanted to call Jessa again, but a part of me knew she was in danger just for knowing me. I missed her laugh, her silly jokes, the way she always brought snacks, whenever she visited. I needed her, but I couldn't put her life at risk. The loneliness was heavier now. I wasn't just fighting monsters in the dark. I was fighting the fear of becoming one, of giving in, of turning bitter like my uncle, or mad like my mother in her final days. The next time the creature appeared, it came in the form of a young child. She stood at the edge of my garden, barefoot, wearing a white dress. Her eyes were black. She said, "You don't belong here. They will eat your soul." And then she walked backward into the woods, vanishing into the trees. I didn't follow. But that night, I buried salt at every doorway, left garlic near the windows, and placed a mutia in a bowl of blessed water beside my bed. I drew the protective symbols again and again until my fingers bled. I whispered to the night, "I will not run," because now I knew the truth. I was not just a girl in an old haunted house. I was the last of a bloodline chosen to guard something ancient, something sacred, and the evil that hunted me, the Swangs, traitors, shadows, they weren't just coming for me. They were coming for everything the Mutia protected. And I wasn't ready. Not yet. But I would be. Because whether I liked it or not, this fight was mine. The days were shorter now. Or maybe it just felt that way. The light outside seemed weaker, like the sun no longer wanted to shine over this land. The wind carried a strange scent, faint, like rotting leaves mixed with burnt meat. And the animals, they were gone. No birds in the trees. No Volkswagen. Just silence, broken only by distant howls late at night. I kept the mutia close, tied around my neck with a red thread. It pulsed more often now, as if it could sense something drawing near. The house had become restless again. Doors creaked even when locked, mirrors cracked without touch, and shadows moved where there was no light. Something was coming, and I knew it would happen soon. I hadn't seen Jessa since the night she left. But out of nowhere, she showed up one morning, banging on the gate, crying. Her face was pale, her hair messy, and her hands wouldn't stop shaking. "They took my Lola," she whispered. She was just gone. No signs, just blood on the floor and black feathers. She didn't need to explain. I knew what it meant. The Swangs were no longer hiding. They were starting their hunt. I let her in, hugged her tightly, and told her everything. No more secrets. About the curse. The Mutia. My mother. Mang Anoi. The creature in the woods. Jessa didn't say anything for a while. She just sat on the floor, holding her head in her hands. Then, with tears in her eyes, she nodded. "I'm not leaving you alone again," she said. "We finished this together." For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel completely alone. We spent the next few days preparing. We blessed water with old prayers, carved symbols into the doors and windows, and mixed protective oils using the herbs Mang Inoi left behind. Jessa learned quickly. She didn't ask too many questions, maybe because deep down, she had always felt something strange about this place, about me. Still, I could see the fear in her eyes, and in mine the doubt. Was I really strong enough? Could I protect her? Was I meant to fight this battle, or just survive it? The answers never came, but the signs did. 3 nights later, the moon turned red. Not a full blood moon, just a sliver like a bleeding cut in the sky. The light it cast wasn't warm. It was cold, harsh, unnatural. The trees outside twisted slightly, leaning toward the house, as if listening. That same night, we heard it. A screech. Far away at first, then closer. Like something huge dragging its claws across the ground. It echoed from the woods to the roof, from the basement to the ceiling. Jessa grabbed my arm. "They're testing us." And she was right. The next day, we found a dead goat hanging from the mango tree out front. Its eyes were missing. Its belly cut open, but nothing was taken. Just exposed. A message. We burned the body and poured salt in a circle around the tree. I couldn't eat that day. Couldn't sleep. Every hour felt like a countdown to something I didn't understand, but felt in my bones. I dreamed again that night. This time I wasn't a child. I was me, standing in front of the house, but it was burning. Flames climbed the walls, but no heat touched me. In the center of the fire stood my mother. She looked calm. "You have to remember," she said. "The blood chooses, but the heart decides." Then she pointed behind me. I turned and saw them. Dozens of shadowy figures, crawling, flying, slithering across the ground. Eyes glowing, teeth grinding, laughing. I woke up screaming. Jessa rushed in, holding a blade dipped in blessed oil. I was covered in sweat, and the mutia around my neck was glowing white-hot. "I think tonight is the last quiet night," I told her. "After this, they'll come." We spent the whole next day reinforcing everything. We set traps, hung garlic and talismans, marked the land with signs of protection. But no matter how hard we worked, the fear stayed. I kept hearing my mother's voice in my head. "The blood chooses, but the heart decides." What did she mean? Was it about the mutia? About the curse? About the choice to stay and fight? Or was it something deeper? Later that afternoon, I found something new hidden beneath the floorboards in the kitchen. An old kabibi, etched with the same symbols as the mutia. When I held it, it hummed in harmony with the mutia. They were connected. The moment the two touched, I saw flashes, visions. A man with black wings flying across a burning sky. A woman holding a baby surrounded by swangs, whispering a prayer as light covered them. And a voice. One must carry the pain. One must carry the light. I dropped the kabibi, breathing hard. Was that me? Or was there someone else? That evening, I told Jessa everything. Even about my Uncle Elias. How he ran away. How he left my mother to face the curse alone. I told her about the visions, the burden, the fear. She just looked at me and said, "You carry both." That night, we sat side by side on the rooftop, watching the stars disappear behind thick clouds. The air was still, too still. Then we saw the first sign. A figure, tall, thin, walking down the dirt path toward the house. Its head tilted unnaturally, like it was listening to something beneath the ground. Then another, and another. They were gathering, watching, waiting. I tightened my grip on the mutia. "They're almost ready," I whispered. Jessa nodded, placing a hand on my shoulder. "Then we will be too." But inside, I knew we weren't ready. How could we be? We were just two girls with old talismans and broken memories, facing creatures that had hunted our bloodline for generations. The doubt grew heavier, but so did the fire in my chest. This house, this curse, this war, I didn't choose any of it. But maybe I could choose what to do with it. The sun dipped behind the mountains. The red moon rose higher. The wind picked up, and from deep in the woods, a single voice called out, "Give her to us, or burn with her." We didn't answer. We just lit the fires and waited. The firewood crackled in the drums we placed around the house. The flames cast dancing shadows across the walls, but they couldn't hide the truth anymore. Something was out there. Many of them, and they were getting bolder. Jessa and I stayed close to the front room, both of us holding blessed blades and wearing the old protection symbols carved on leather and tied around our necks. The mutia and the kabibi were placed in a circle of salt and herbs at the center of the house. They glowed steadily, like a heartbeat keeping rhythm with something ancient and unseen. But as the moon climbed higher, and the forest grew quieter, something started to feel wrong. The air changed. It wasn't just the cold anymore. It felt heavier, like walking underwater. My chest tightened. My thoughts slowed. And then the glow of the mutia suddenly faded. Not completely, but weaker. Faint, like something was draining it. Jessa noticed too. "It's never done that before," she said, fear creeping into her voice. "I don't know what it means," I whispered, but deep down I felt it. Something was close, but it wasn't just one of them. It was something else, something that didn't belong to the forest or the house or the bloodline. Something older. Before we could react, the candles around the circle flickered, then died all at once. Darkness filled the room. Then came the voice. Soft, smooth, almost kind. You've done well, Anik. But the time has come. My blood ran cold, because I recognized the voice. It was my mother. I turned, searching the shadows. Mama. There she was, standing in the hallway, wearing the same dress from my dream. Her hair loose around her shoulders, eyes glowing gold, not red like the Aswangs. Her face was calm, even warm, but the energy around her was unnatural. Power rolled off her in waves, pressing down on the room like a storm about to break. Jessa stepped back, blade raised. That's not your mother, she whispered. I don't know, I said, barely able to breathe. The figure smiled. Of course I'm not, but I remember her well. I watched her burn the first Mutya. I watched her fail. Then the illusion shifted. Her skin cracked like dried clay, revealing a face underneath, darker, thinner, with hollow eyes and black veins pulsing across her forehead. She wasn't a Swang. She was something else. Something worse. A Tagkiab, Jessa muttered. A soul stealer. Ancient. Almost forgotten. It all made sense now. The visions. The dreams. The voice in the flames. They weren't warnings. They were guides. The Tagkiab had been in my head all along, watching me prepare for a battle I didn't fully understand. You think this is about Aswangs? The creature hissed. They are pawns, puppets of fear. But you carry something much older. My knees trembled. I clutched the Mutya tight, but its light was dim. Too dim. You are the vessel, she said, stepping closer. Your bloodline was never cursed. It was chosen. Chosen for what? I couldn't speak. My thoughts swirled. My heart pounded. Jessa stepped in front of me, blade out, voice steady. Stay away from her. The Tagkiab tilted her head. You can't protect her from her own blood. Then she vanished into black smoke, leaving only the echo of her laughter behind. The house shook. Windows shattered. Doors burst open. Cold wind screamed through the rooms. The enemy had arrived. But now I knew they weren't the true threat. They were distractions. Shadows sent to weaken us while the real monster watched from beneath the surface. We gathered everything. Mutya, Kabibi, blades, salt, oils, and ran to the cellar, the most protected part of the house. I could barely think. My mother was never cursed. She was tricked, controlled by the Tagkiab. And now it wanted me too. Inside the cellar, I sat down, breathing hard, tears running down my face. It was never just about the Aswangs, I said. They're just part of it. The real danger is inside me. Jessa sat beside me, holding my hand. Maybe, but that doesn't mean it owns you. I shook my head. But what if I lose control? What if I become like her? You won't. You've made every choice to protect, not destroy. That matters. She was right, but doubt still sat heavy on my chest. Suddenly, the Mutya flared, bright, blinding, and for the first time, I heard it speak, not in words, in feeling, pain, hope, fire, blood, truth. I understood. The Mutya wasn't just a weapon. It was a memory, a living part of the Dawada who had once protected our land. And now, it was calling to be awakened fully. But awakening, it meant more than fighting the enemy. It meant facing everything inside me. Fear, anger, betrayal, and choosing who I really was. Outside, the howls grew louder. The Aswangs were surrounding the house. Jessa stood up, gripping her weapon. It's time. But I hesitated, not because of the monsters, because I now saw what had to be done. The Mutya had to merge with the Kabibi. Only then would it release its true light. But doing that would burn through me. It would show everything, every memory of my bloodline, every failure, every lie. And it might kill me. I'm scared, I admitted. I know, Jessa said, but you're still here, and that means you're ready. I placed both objects in front of me, drew a symbol in salt, and whispered the chant that had come to me in my dream. The room filled with wind. The flames rose, and as the lights surrounded me, I saw them. My mother, Mang Anoi, a young girl holding a baby, singing to the stars. My ancestors, all watching, all waiting, and somewhere behind them, the Tagkiab, smiling, because she knew the real battle hadn't even begun yet. The Mutia and the Kabibi pulsed like twin hearts on the ground in front of me, glowing with a fierce golden light. Around them, the salt circle trembled, the grains lifting into the air like they were weightless. The air cracked with unseen energy, hot, alive, demanding. Outside, the howls had stopped. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. Jessa stood behind me, blade drawn, eyes fixed on the cellar door. We both knew what was about to happen. This wasn't just another attack. This was it, the moment everything had been building toward. I took a deep breath, then pressed my palm onto the glowing objects. Pain shot through me like fire. My vision blurred. My skin burned. Every memory, every whisper from the past, every scream I'd ever held back tore through my mind like a storm. I saw my mother crying in the corner of a room lit by candlelight, whispering ancient prayers. I saw Mang Inoi standing before a dark forest, his body broken, his eyes still full of fight. I saw children, others like me, running from shadows they could never escape. And then I saw her, the Tagkiab. She was no longer hiding behind a mask or an illusion. She stood tall and proud in a space of nothing, black sky, black earth, black air. Her skin was cracked like stone, but her eyes glowed with ancient fire. You think power comes from pain? I shouted, voice shaking, heart burning. You only take. You never give. She tilted her head, her voice like thunder buried in silk. But you're full of pain. That's why you're perfect. Suddenly, the vision shattered, and I was back in the cellar on my knees, the Mutia and Kabibi now fused into one brilliant object, almost too bright to look at. It floated above the ground, humming, vibrating like it was alive. I felt it inside me now. The Dewada's essence, not a weapon, not a curse, but a living force that demanded choice. Will you carry light or fall in a shadow? The cellar door exploded inward. Dark forms rushed in, aswangs, snarling, wings outstretched, their eyes hungry and blind. Jessa slashed at the first one, cutting deep into its shoulder. It shrieked and turned into black smoke, retreating into the dark. 3 more came. I stood, raised my hand, and the fused Mutia blazed. Light burst from my chest, not like a flame, but like a pulse of sun. The Aswang screamed, burning where they stood. They didn't turn to ash. They vanished like illusions finally exposed to truth. Then came the real threat. The Tagkiab descended through the hole in the ceiling, floating, her body untouched by gravity or time. Her eyes locked onto mine. You're not ready, she hissed. I am, I said, though my voice trembled. I raised the Mutia again. Light surged, but this time it didn't work. The Tagkiab raised her arms and caught it in midair, laughing. You still don't understand, do you? You can't destroy what lives inside you. My legs gave out. The light was dying again. She stepped forward. You think your pain is power, but it's mine. I've lived in your family for generations, feeding on your fear, your loneliness, your anger. And in that moment, I understood. She wasn't just an enemy. She was born from us, from our grief, our silence, the way my mother never spoke of her past, the way my uncle ran, the way I let guilt and fear rule my every move. She was the product of everything we buried. I stood again. No, you whispered. You don't owe me anymore. The fused Mutia floated back into my hand, but I didn't fight her with it. I closed my eyes. I remembered. My mother's love, broken but still present. Jessa's loyalty, her strength beside me. The Dewada's voice inside the Mutia, gentle, patient, pure. I opened my heart, and light poured out, not from the Mutia, but from me. The Takyab screamed. She reached for me, but her hands burned when they touched the light. She shrank, her form twisting, fighting to stay together. "You're not my shadow," I said. "You're my reflection. And it's time I faced you." She dissolved into fragments of black wind and ash, pieces of regret, pain, and forgotten promises, scattered by the storm of light that had become me. And then it was silent. The cellar walls cracked, the house trembled, but nothing fell. It was like everything held its breath, waiting. Then a warm breeze passed through. The light faded gently. The fused Mutia floated back down, now cool and dim, resting in my hand like a sleeping bird. The battle was over. Jessa dropped her weapon. "You did it," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "No," I said. "We did." We climbed out of the cellar and into the night. The red moon had faded. The sky was clear again. Stars shone above, and for the first time in a long time, I heard birds singing. It was over, or so I thought. A week passed. We repaired what we could, buried what we couldn't. The house felt different now. Not lighter, but honest. The walls didn't whisper anymore. The mirrors held only my reflection. But one night, I woke up to a sound. Not a scream, not a whisper, just a knock. 3 soft knocks on the front door. I opened it slowly. No one was there, just an envelope on the ground. Inside, a photo of me, as a child, in the arms of someone I didn't recognize. On the back, written in the same shaky handwriting from my uncle's old journal, were the words, "Not everything buried is dead. Watch the shadows." And for the first time in days, I felt cold again. I stood on the porch of the old house, holding the photograph in trembling hands. The image of me as a child, smiling, peaceful, held by someone I didn't recognize. The stranger's face was half hidden in shadow, but there was something familiar in their eyes. And the words on the back haunted me. "Not everything buried is dead. Watch the shadows." For a long while I just stood there listening, to the wind, to the rustling leaves, to the silence. The house didn't whisper anymore, but something in the world still felt unsettled. The battle with the Takyab had ended. The Aswangs were gone. The light had returned. But the truth was, no victory comes without a cost. Jessa and I stayed in the house for a few more days. We patched what we could, burned what was cursed, cleaned every inch until the place stopped smelling like smoke and salt and old fear. But the photo kept me up at night. Who was the person holding me? Why was it left on my doorstep? I went back into the attic one last time. Not for answers, but maybe for peace. There, hidden beneath the floorboards, I found another journal, older, fragile, wrapped in cloth. It belonged to my Lola, my mother's mother. Her writing was neat, full of emotion. She had known about the curse, about the Mutia. She had even trained with the old Dewada once, before they disappeared. But what broke me was this passage. I had 2 children. One I raised with light. The other, I buried in darkness, to protect the world from what he was becoming. He's gone now, or so I believed. But blood remembers, and the blood always returns. A chill ran through my spine. The man in the photo wasn't a stranger. He was my uncle, the one we thought had run away. But he hadn't run. He had been buried, bound, hidden deep by the family, because he had let the darkness in long before the Aswangs returned. Maybe even before the Takyab found him. And now, after all this time, he was coming back. I didn't tell Jessa right away. I needed time to process it. We sat together on the porch later that evening, watching the last of the red-stained leaves fall from the trees. The world was quiet, as if it too was tired from everything that had happened. "I think we've earned some peace," she said softly. "I hope so," I replied. She looked at me, eyes gentle. "But you don't feel it, do you?" I shook my head. "There's more." She nodded, not asking for details. Because she knew. She always knew. The next morning, we packed up what we could and left the house. I didn't feel afraid anymore, but I knew I couldn't stay. The place needed to rest. The land needed silence. And I needed time. We moved in with Jess's cousins in the next town. They didn't ask questions, just welcomed us. I kept the fused Mutia and Kabibi in a box beside my bed, wrapped in white cloth and surrounded by prayer leaves. I didn't hear whispers from them anymore, but sometimes they glowed softly at night, like they were dreaming with me. Weeks passed. No signs of the Aswangs. No more nightmares. Just normal life, piece by piece. I even started drawing again. Sketches of the forest, the house, the people I remembered from the visions. I drew Mang Inouye, my mother, the Dawada. I didn't know if they were watching anymore, but I wanted to honor them, to make sure their stories lived on. Then one night, Jessa handed me a letter. No return address, no name. Inside was a single sentence. When the light returns, the true shadow follows. I didn't sleep that night, because I finally understood. The battle with the Takiab was not the end. It was the warning. My family had sealed something long ago, my uncle. But his darkness wasn't just personal. It was connected to something older, a rift in the balance, a hunger that wasn't satisfied by fear or flesh, but by power. And now that I had awakened the full Mutia, now that the light had returned to the land, that power would try again to rise. But this time I would be ready. This time I wasn't alone. The final morning before we left for good, I walked back to the old house. Just once. For goodbye. The front door creaked gently as I stepped inside. The floors were dry. The air was clear. No whispers. No cold. Just stillness. I placed a small stone in the center of the living room floor. An old river rock from Mang Inouye's hut. I had carved a protective symbol into it, the same one my Lolo once used. Thank you, I whispered to the walls, for holding me, for teaching me, for surviving me. As I turned to leave, I looked back one last time. And for a moment, just for a second, I thought I saw her, my mother, standing by the window, smiling. No sados, just light. We never returned to that house again. But I carried the story. I carried the Mutia. I carried the memories. And though the future was still uncertain, though more darkness would surely come, I finally understood something I hadn't before. Light isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to face fear, even when you're still shaking, even when you're broken, even when you don't know how the story ends. Because in that choice, we become more than cursed. We become whole. The end.